Sir Jeff Hurst, the Trevor Brooking and Billy Bonds, Paolo Di Canio, West Ham United. We celebrate our victories, we stick together in defeat. Proud of our history, West Ham United, more than just a podcast. More than just a podcast.
Where am I? There I am. Very good evening to you. I hope that intro has given you a brief insight as to the guests I've got on tonight. I've stolen their theme tune. I'll probably get sued by them, but hey, doesn't matter really. I hope you're all well. I hope you've all had a really good bank holiday weekend. There is no script today. I did read the interesting comment that someone left on the show I did this morning, where he went, "You're reading a script and it all sounds quite amateurish." Well, lo and behold, I am a fucking amateur, so I'm never professing to be a professional doing this. But so no script tonight. We're just going to have a few themes, and I've got a couple of people that are going to come on and chat about some of the things West Ham related, of course. So let's bring them on. Let's say hello to them. Good evening, Nigel. How are you? Long time.
I'm in my shed.
Wrong
Fucking
show.
hell. If you hold up, if you're going to nick the one theme tune, you're supposed to take them all, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I know. I couldn't find that one.
Actually, you might have done us a favour. I think we could nick the audio from this for tonight and just bang it out on the podcast feed.
Oh, there you
and then
go.
I don't have to talk to him again this week.
Let's bring it on, shall we? Good evening, Sean. How are you?
No, it's not that. It's where are you? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, it's not, there's about...
No, if you can nick it, number one, you didn't have consent, right? So
all right.
Our lawyers will be in touch. There will be a cease and desist letter. But let's put that aside at the moment. You did not have consent.
Thank you, Sean. It was really good to speak to you.
But if you're going to do it, you go, this is more than just a podcast.
I
and
know,
then you say,
but I think that's
where
enough.
are you? What are you doing? And Nigel says, I'm in my shed. And then we play the theme tune. If you're going to nick our 8 listeners, right, because it's a bank holiday and it's the end of the season, you've got to do it right.
I know. Well, as I was told this morning, I'm an amateur. So,
you come to the House of Amateurs, because if you really want to do amateur, Nigel and I have got that market cornered. I don't know if there's any more room.
Oh, I did hear the podcast, and I did sort of listen to you professing to the fact that you were indeed.
Well, we don't script it ever. We have no running order. We turn up. We don't even check our internet, do we, Nigel?
No.
Yeah, but you lot been doing it for what, 13 years or something like that?
13 years, yeah. 539 episodes if you're counting, which I am.
And God knows how many words he spouted out in those 539 episodes.
A lot of hair, lot of hot hair.
Lot of bollocks.
And how many times has Len lost it? Well, he had to lose it on the last one there, last one of the season, and well done. If you're listening, Len, hello.
This isn't a more than just a podcast. This is all YouTube.
Oh, right. It's YouTube monarchy.
So the season's over. The worst kept secret of West Ham is that David Moyes departed, and Julian Lopetegui, exclusive that.
Has he said that right, Nigel?
Is in.
Julian Lopetegui.
Julian Lopetegui.
Julian Lopetegui. Did I not? I thought it was Julian. I actually listened to something.
We played
online.
It about 400 times.
Julian.
Julian Lopetegui.
Well, I don't get any names right, so I wouldn't worry about it. What's your thoughts? I know Sean's got a lot to say, so I'll start with you, Nigel. What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on Lopetegui, or however he's pronounced? A good move for West Ham? Was it a surprising move?
Well, nothing's a surprise, is it? Because we're told in advance now, aren't we? So there is no surprise. As usual, we leak like a sieve, and we tell the waiting world what we're going to be doing. It's just it's not. I don't know if it's a strange appointment. In a way, there's a bit of continuity there. From some of the stuff I read about him and the way he sets up a team, he's probably going to be a bit more adventurous than Moyes. But then again, you couldn't sit any further back than we had been recently. So there's that outlook to it. I think he's not. Moyes is not a tough act to follow, to be honest. But at the end of the day, he's Moyes has been, whatever you look at it, he has been successful for West Ham in league position, in goals scored, points accrued, and at the end of the day, 50 weeks ago, he won us a trophy. So, and no West Ham manager's ever lost his job with West Ham in this position. No West Ham manager has ever lost his job with West Ham in the position they're in.
Do you think, because we remember what happened a few seasons back, Sean, with the whole issue about the protests and so on, and Pellegrini was brought in almost as if, because when I first heard about Lopetegui coming in, my initial thought was this feels like another Pellegrini type appointment by the board, like a bit of a trying to get the fans off the board's back, and going for what seemed to on paper to be a signing, a managerial signing that would have appeased the fans. Is this similar?
No, and I'll tell you why. But because he's called the Spanish David Moyes, right?
Yeah.
He's quite defensive. He's very obsessive. He's actually an absolute workaholic. So a bit like David Moyes, he works 7 days a week. He works 12 hours a day. When he's not doing that, he's watching football. We know his pedigree. We know he FC Porto. We know Real Madrid. We know Spain. We know Seville, and then Wolves. So he's look. You don't get those jobs by just being a dummy, right? He wasn't the fans' choice. And this is why I say he wasn't the fans' choice. Pellegrini was welcome with open arms. It was going, hallelujah, we've got a winner here. Lopetegui was not, right? I ran a poll, as you know, of 5,000. Question, do you want Lopetegui or do you want David Moyes to stay? 56% said they wanted David Moyes to stay. I hope, and if you've listened to the podcast, the king is dead, long live the king. I'm 100% behind him. But at the very minimum, he's got to move us on. All right, maybe I was being a bit flippant on the podcast last week by saying he's got to do better and he's got to get us Champions League. But that's my ambition. I want him to get Champions League. But I want him to finish top 10 in the first season. And I want him to at least push on to qualify for Europe in his second season, which he's only got 2 seasons. So he's got a 2-year contract with an automatic 1-year extension if he qualifies for Europe in one of the 2. So that tells you what the board expect from this new manager. It's Europe or nothing, or is it be out in 2 seasons? It's not a long-term project.
I'm going to ask Nigel this: Europe or nothing, Nigel. If he doesn't get a decent finish in the first season, get about having 2 seasons, Sean. But if he doesn't get a decent finish in the first season, and I think a lot of fans are going to be thinking decent finish is going to be back in Europe. Are the fans going to be on the board's back or Lopetegui's back or both?
I'm not really sure in a way. I mean, let's look at it like this, yeah? If West Ham had finished 7th, would we have qualified for Europe this season?
No.
No.
No,
we wouldn't have.
No. Well, that's only just come out in the last 24 hours. But no.
Yeah. Well, no, it ain't come out in the last 24
FA
hours.
Cup.
It's
FA
always been the way that only the top 5 qualify for Europe. The other 2 do it by winning the cups.
Everyone assumed though City would win.
Well, that's their assumption. Is the mother of all fuck ups.
Yeah.
So finishing 7th wouldn't have got us into Europe this year. So, and there is always that outside chance that these type of things do happen. So, would we have sacked Moyes if we'd have finished 7th, but then didn't qualify for Europe because Man United won the FA Cup? Would that have been a reason to sack him? I mean,
Probably.
let's get it right. People say he weren't sacked, he weren't renewed a contract. John Lyall's contract weren't renewed. They still rang him up and sacked him. Yeah. When he's told he's not getting a new contract, and you know we've had it going on since the end of January, February with Moyes. Moyes, in a way, dug himself into an hole by saying there's a contract on the table, but I'm not signing it. Because that gave West Ham the ability to go out and talk to anyone they bloody want and say, well, Dave, if you're leaving, we've got to have a replacement.
Got to have a replacement.
So
that's an interesting point you've just raised, because it was the Nolan interview that was done recently where he seemed to allude to the fact that Moyes saying publicly that he had a contract on the table and he was going to, decide later on. Nolan seems to suggest that affected the players and their form. Is that valid? Is that reasonable?
Yeah. Look at Liverpool. Klopp goes, I'm off. Yeah. All of a sudden, they're not in the title race anymore. And where they were going after 4 trophies, they ended up with the lesser out of the 4. They still won a trophy. So in a way, I don't know if that's good enough for Liverpool fans or not. I'd be ecstatic to win the League Cup. But so that is, there's going to be loads of reasons why West Ham went off the boil. It's not the first time it's happened. It was funny. I see a thing on Twitter today, or Facebook, and it was the league table from 1983. December 83, and West Ham was second in December 1983. At the end of that season, we finished 9th. These things have always happened. West Ham have always had seasons where they've started well, hit the front early, and like a tired old racehorse died towards the end and trundles down the table. So,
but Sean, the fact that we moved to the new stadium is meant to have eradicated all of that, isn't it? Isn't that the whole idea of moving?
To Nick Nigel saying goals are fun, right? We had a lot of goals. Europe was good for the London Stadium, right? All right, there's a few diehard people that talk about the London Stadium, but most people were talking about the style of football and not the bloody London Stadium. Let's be honest, right?
Right.
From a ball point of view, points per game, wins, Europe. You couldn't have asked anything more from David Moyes. There was a frustration, right, with his dithering on transfers. That was an irritation. And there was a friction with Tim Steidten. And I think if you ask, the fan disrest on style of football was a factor, but I think the real factor was transfers. We've got someone like Tim Steidten who could not work with David Moyes because he didn't want to be head coach. He wanted to be in control. If you ask me what happened from that February supposed contract to the end of the season, I think the new contract, most likely, the first draft contracts, it was never a point to sign it, probably gave him less control of transfers. And that's why he didn't want to sign it.
Yeah, I suggested that this morning in the show I did. I said that there was a lot of speculation around at the time that he was going to be offered this head coach role. And I think he kind of played a little bit of a game of chess with the board.
Yeah.
Because I think he probably said to himself, well, I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll qualify for Europe again.
I'll qualify for Europe. I'll get in Champions League, whatever. He was a very, confident man and an arrogant man. That's one of what made him the manager he was. And he probably thought, well, I'll teach you. But you know what? I don't think there's any hard feelings. I just don't hope. I hope he doesn't try and do a backstabbing interview at some point with Tim Steidten. Because I think his beef is not with David Sullivan. I don't think his beef is with West Ham or the fan base, right? Who weren't always very kind to him. I mean, not all of his goodbye words were full of praise for West Ham. But I think he had a problem with Tim. And that was the change point.
Let's get on to Steidten, because there's every suggestion, Nigel, to say that these two guys, Lopetegui and Steidten, are going to be working in harmony. Now, it's obvious, wasn't it? you know, that the relationship between Moyes and Steiden was strained. We thought maybe, especially with a really good summer transfer window last year, we thought, oh, looks like they can work together. But it all unraveled, didn't it, in January when the best we could do was a loan signing of a Man City player. His name is
Calvin Phillips.
Calvin Phillips. Is Lopetegui Steiden's type of man in terms of, you know, are they going to work closer together as seems to be suggested?
Well, I mean, Lopetegui, I mean, this is a very continental setup.
Yeah.
So I suppose it makes sense to have a continental coach come in, because that's what Lopetegui is. He's not the manager, is he? Moyes is from the old school British way of doing things, where the manager rules the roost, which personally I actually think it generally should be the way, because if results go bad, they're not going to sack Steiden, they're going to sack Lopetegui. So, and that's the thing where I think Moyes was looking at, is that if he's going to lose his job, he'd rather do it off of his, you know, off of the choices he's made, which you could argue probably has happened. Because if you look back to January, the signing of Calvin Phillips was probably driven by Moyes and not by Steiden.
Yeah.
And that the stories are, Sean will back up, that players were offered to Moyes and he turned them all down. Yeah. So
Zaha, for one, was offered on loan to us.
Made a rod for his own back there. So,
why was that? I mean, that happened.
Why turn Zaha down?
Well, no, we know why. He turned Zaha down.
Allegedly.
We all know why he turned Zaha down.
Just...
And for those of you who don't know, just Google it. But it happened 2 years ago. I genuinely can't remember the January window in between, whether we got players or not. But I can remember 2022 when we didn't get anyone. And I can remember this one where we didn't get anyone apart from Phillips. But why? I mean, surely Moyes must have realised that the only way forward, being in Europe, trying to stay at top, you know, top 6, top 7 in the league, we needed reinforcements. I mean,
I think it was a power play, and the reason I say that is, you know, with all of Tim Steiden talking about he could join Liverpool, right? I thought he thought, well, I'll see him out, you know. You get frustrated. I do think there was a little bit of arrogance here, and we'll see him out. I'm in charge. I get to the final say. I get the veto. You know, we're offered. All right, there wasn't a lot of choice in January, but Zaha was one, and there were other players offered, and he just said no, and it completely backfired on him with with Calvin Phillips.
I'll just point something out about that last comment there.
Go on.
That was totally false.
What's that?
West Ham's average position under David Moyes.
Yeah, it wasn't that at all. So I don't know.
It was 9th, actually.
One of the other comments I want to back up is, you know, that Lopetegui wasn't Tim Steiden's choice is completely untrue. One of your listeners said that, and that's absolutely right. This didn't happen overnight, right? Now the secret is out. This didn't happen overnight, and Nigel will know, and he can back me up. This took months. You know, they courted Lopetegui for months. This rumour, I'm not going to say where it started, etc., that Steiden and Noble wanted Amaran and David Sullivan wanted Lopetegui. Yep. It's just false. Bless Mark Noble, but he was not in charge, and he wasn't tasked with finding a new manager, right? He's a figurehead at best. He's an ambassador. He does look after the kids, and he's the conduit between the players and the board. Yes, that's all part of what he does. He's not there every day, and he hasn't got a really strategic role, right? Because otherwise that would upset Tim. Tim led the meetings. Tim did the due diligence for Lopetegui. It went on for months before it got leaked out. How it got leaked out is another story, which we won't talk about today. But the reason I think people took such exception to it is because Will Salthouse did the deal. And the reason Will Salthouse did the deal, Lopetegui didn't have an agent. His agent is now the Atletico Madrid director of football. So he was without an agent. So Will Salthouse, who'd you go to? You either go to Barry Silkman or you go to Will Salthouse to put the deal together, right? He's a deal maker. He knows people. He put the deal together. So automatically people think, well, it's a Sullivan. You know, Lopetegui has been forced on Tim Steidten because 1, he's free, 2, he's cheap. And that's why we didn't get Amran. Amran, I think, was a bit of a smokescreen, mostly on the Amran side. I think he thought this could help. It did get the fans off of Sullivan's back for a while. So it sort of did a PR bit. But he was never coming to West Ham. Never in a million years. And he wasn't going to Liverpool, as it turns out, after either.
I mean, it's interesting because when the Amarin story came out, I kind of speculated, how do we know that that's even going to work? Now, I don't know if this is correct or not, but my understanding is that Amarin wanted full control anyway. I don't know if that's accurate or not. A bit like Moyes, you know, he wanted full control of transfers and stuff like that.
It was pantomime, Stel.
It was. That's all it was.
It was pure pantomime that suited each other. You know, did that help? Look, it's all a game. If you ever play poker, right? It's a game, right? Let's say Lopetegui was already in negotiation. There's a few sticking points, right? It works, right? Suddenly, Lopetegui flies over. Suddenly, there's a picture of him on a plane. Oh, isn't that convenient? Then he lands. Everyone tracks his plane. He lands in Stansted, right, at 6:30 p.m. His Sullivan's Mansions is 30 minutes away, right? He drives to Sullivan's mansion, right? Maybe took him half an hour to get off the plane. So at 7 o'clock he drives. By 10 o'clock his plane's taken off and gone back to Lisbon. So the plane was only on the ground for 3.5 hours, and he's supposed to have some meaningful conversation with David Moyes. I don't get it. I think everybody was trying to get everything out of it, and everybody knew where they were. Amran wanted to show the world he was available and try and force Liverpool's hand. West Ham were negotiating with Lopetegui and thought, oh, wouldn't it be good if someone else sees? And it distracted the whole Moyes situation for about 5 days.
Okay, so this has been going on for months. So what's your thoughts, Nigel, on the fact that Moyes turned around and said in January, I've been offered a new contract? If it, and I don't dispute that, Sean, that it, you know, that the chasing Lopetegui has been going on for months, but why would Moyes then come out and say, I've got a contract on the table?
Well, one, there was questions over his future, weren't there? There was pressure from the fan base. And we all know that actually pressure from the fan base can bear fruit with this ownership. And I think it's what led to this. For whatever reason, West Ham have always, under Sullivan, have always had this, we'll decide at the end of the season mantra. They're happy to let managers run down their contracts when they're not in relegation battles. So, and you can see it in a way with what happened with Allardyce's final season, mirrored the same as what happened in this season. And you got to feel, I feel a bit sorry for Moyes, because realistically, when he wins the trophy, if he was West Ham going to be West Ham's long-term manager, that's where he should have been offered a new contract. But they didn't. You know, it was the usual, let's run down the contract. I think there was a bit of bluff and bluster on Moyes' behalf in what he was coming out and saying about this new this contract that was on the table. There probably was talks about it, and he was probably getting his punch in first before the club. He knew that the club leaked and talks, you know, out of school to journalists and amateur journalists and everybody else. So he thought he'd get his punch in first, but of course, in a way, as I said, I felt like he walked into a trap there, because that gave West Ham the ability to talk openly to other managers, because he's your manager. He's not saying, "Oh, I want to stay." He's saying, "I might not stay." Well, fuck you then. We'll go and talk to someone else.
Okay,
But isn't it refreshing, though, Stel, that actually this time under Tin Steidham, we did our due diligence before a decision was made? That is what clubs should do. We've always said you should have a club B. I think the decision, remember, I think it went on for months. I don't think a decision was made, and I think Nigel agrees with me, till the 21st of April when we lost against Palace.
Yeah.
That's where really the death knell came. But I think up to then, when I talked to the senior source, we desperately want him to turn things around. We desperately want him to turn things around. And I think he was being genuine. He really did want him to turn things around.
Yeah, well, I remember doing a show during that time saying much the same thing, that the board really wanted him to stay. He still had a lot of kudos with the board. And then, of course, there's all the thing about, once you start replacing Moyes, you start replacing his backroom staff, as we've seen.
They were always going to go. I do laugh when they went, "Oh, we only found out on Monday." I'm sure they did, but everyone else knew.
But I'm going to pick up here on Peter's comment saying, why are we still banging on about Moyes?
Yeah, why are we still? Yeah, why are we? That's a good point.
Let's move back onto Steidham then. And because one of the first things that Steidham and Lopetegui have to deal with is, of course, the Paquetá fiasco. Look, I think everybody now knows what's happened with Paquetá, the charges that have been made, and people are still suggesting innocent until proven guilty. And Sean, I know you
doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Well,
not in tribunals.
Yeah,
in criminal cases.
But then why? Why now? Kine and Isaac, who's went, the Sun newspaper did that interview with him, and he sounded quite bitter and talked about how he hopes that they throw the book at Paquetá. It's right funny, really, because I thought a fellow professional would be kind of like a little bit on the same side. But Isaac said that the police were called and they went to his house, etc. So, but this isn't a criminal
charges.
Case, is it?
As you know, I've written quite a bit about this, Stel, and talked to a lot of people. Now, interestingly, Granit, the Arsenal player, had a similar thing, and he was never charged. An investigation for over a year. In the end, they dropped the cases. Now, here's an interesting thing, because there were WhatsApp messages between Granit and his mates, and yet he didn't get charged. We don't know, because unfortunately, when you're not charged, the FA doesn't release its evidence in the same way they did with Isaac. Isaac was charged. Obviously, he pleaded not guilty. He didn't turn up for his own defence and was found guilty. Got a 10-year ban and then 18 months more for other bets and not responding. Now, Paquetá, I'm sure, will plead not guilty. I've been told by players close to the representatives close to the player that there's no evidence. But we don't know. It's strange that the FA are saying they're charging him rule F3, which means he's not complied with the investigation. We know he said he handed over his phone. So what is it he hasn't done? We might not know. 4 counts of E5.1, which is basically spot fixing, which is a criminal offence under the Fraud Act of 2006 and the Gambling Act of 2005. Almost definitely the National Crime Agency's been involved. FIFA's been involved. The Gambling Commission's been involved. But why hasn't he been charged in the same way? And I think the difference is the burden of proof on a criminal charge is beyond reasonable doubt, what they call the 99% test. In a tribunal, it's akin to a civil case, and it's called the 51% test, which is in all probabilities he did it. And that's a much lower bar. It's the same with O.J. Simpson, God rest his soul. He got off the criminal charge, but faced the civil charge, and obviously lost that. Now, I don't know how much circumstantial evidence they can do, because you look at, I'm not an expert, but I'm sure we can talk about this. You look at the yellows, and some of them look a bit dodgy, right? Sky have released all the videos, right? There obviously is the new account set up in Paquetá Island, in where he lived, that are supposed to be associates of him. And there's this apparent collusion with his Brazilian teammate who was playing for, is it Villarreal? Betis, Real Betis, who they bet on a double. Now, there's something we don't know here. You know, as one of them turned Supergrass and grassed him up, as one of his mates said something, that the FA... I know, we don't know. The FA are not just going to go out on a whim. They've got something up their sleeve, and we just don't know it yet. Now, here's the problem, right? He's got to the 3rd of June to plead guilty or not guilty. He can ask for extra time. He could ask for it to be fast-tracked. If he loses that, he can go to the Court of Arbitration, a bit like Popka is going at the moment with his 4-year ban. He's going to the Court of Arbitration. That can take years. And if he loses that, he can still go to the European Human Rights Court. This could go on for another 10 years. But Popka, if we look at it, can't play while he's appealing. He's still not playing for Juventus. And here I don't know the rules. The FA would have to make a ruling on whether he can play or not if he was found guilty.
But then wouldn't that be the case of, you know, all right, so I know you're saying it's not a criminal case, but, you know, if he is appealing, he must still be assumed innocent until...
Well, no, because that's their ruling and he's appealing it. So he could threaten them, the FA, to say loss of earnings, which could go into millions. He'd go, look, if I win my appeal, you're going to owe me all the money I've lost out with, all sponsorship, all earnings, etc. So it's an interesting case from the FA. Have they got the balls enough to say, no, you can't play? We don't know. We've never been in this position. We've never had, you know who's in charge of Qatar. It's a big company, same company with J-Lo. They're called Rock Nation. What's the name? Big company with big lawyers. This is Isaac had no lawyers. He had no money. They're going to throw. It's a bit like the City case with 115 charges, right? There's going to be a lot of lawyers with very clever stuff. None of us know whether he's done it or not, right? Obviously, it doesn't look like there's a smoking gun. In Isaac's case, he was, I don't know if you've read the case notes, either of you.
Yeah, I did.
He was joking on his WhatsApp. He was going, well, we're going to lose this FA Cup anyway. One of you bet on me on a yellow card. And then it looked like banter when he's going, we might as well pay the bills with this one, right? Now, he could have argued it was banter, but it was quite incriminating. Then they got the match referee in. Then they got an expert who analysed the yellow cards. Then they looked at the betting analyst. And
Nigel, what's
10 years?
What's your thoughts on this? I mean, on the surface, fans are split on this. Because I've read the details I've been sent, and you look at it and you go, "Fuck, he's done it. He's actually looks guilty."
I mean, look, at the end of the day, the betting companies, so some stuff's come out. They've not played their hand. They've got more information than they've revealed, which leads me to think that they can probably win their case and that he will get banned. Because at the end of the day, what has been put out is that these are accounts that were new. How many bets had these accounts lost on yellow cards? Yeah, and how many did they win? Because it's, from what I've heard, they never lost any bets on yellow cards.
They didn't lose. They didn't pay out. And the same with the Isaac case.
What I'm saying is,
paid out.
No, but when people talk, you see a lot of fans going, there's this betting on yellow cards all the time, everything. Why is this a problem? Well, the problem is that this was a brand new account. Why it's suspicious? Because it ain't an account that's been going for 3 years and has been betting on this player, yellow card, that player, yellow card, that player. It's a new account set up from a certain area of Brazil that happens to be where Qatar comes from. So there's a good possibility. These accounts were new accounts set up, bets were placed, and they won the lot. Now, come on.
But it's not just that, Nigel, because it's only, I don't know if you know, but for new accounts, and someone from Betway's confirmed,
there's regulations.
£200 limit.
Yeah,
£200 limit per bet. Now, a lot of them were placed on the double, but it wasn't just Betway, right? A lot of the hate has gone Betway's way. There were many other bookies involved in this.
Yeah.
European bookies, English bookies, and Brazilian bookies, all taken. Betway was the first. Do you know why Betway was the first? Nothing to do with West Ham. They shouldn't have done this.
Was it because that they don't have a footprint in Brazil and it was highly suspicious?
Spot on. They do not have a footprint in Brazil, and suddenly they're taking mass bets. That's what alarmed Betway.
It's got to be the daftest thing to have ever done, surely, to go with Betway in a country that doesn't normally.
Yeah, well, I think they did them all. I think they did them all, Stel. I really do. And I think if you look at the Isaac case, I mean, there was hundreds of bets. You know, if you think about it, if you were that organised, there might be 100 different accounts set up and done, and you don't know yet. That evidence will come out in the case.
So what happens next? I mean, you know, it's going to be a gap.
We'll drag it out as long as possible.
But
Honestly,
even if he does drag it out, you just said we don't know if he can play or not.
It's down to the FA. So I think before the case, I don't think they can stop him. Right before the case.
Yeah.
However,
but then the case is likely to be heard. What, August time, perhaps?
Maybe not. Maybe not. And I'll tell you why. Because trying to get these tribunals, especially over the summer, is his barristers available? Are the barristers, because they're barristers on putting the tribunal again? So, you know, you could see this dragging on to next season.
There's a question here. I think we already know the answer. Can West Ham sue the FA for the 85 million that we would have got? Well, can't, because it's
so.
Not...
I'm sure I told you this, but I asked the senior source, "Do we have any insurance cover?" And he said, "No, you can't. No insurance company would insure against this, even if it was a criminal case." Now, there is a precedent that if he's found guilty, right, and we decide to do what Juventus did, Juventus did something that there's been plenty of clubs that have terminated the contract straight away when he's been found guilty, right? And if it's a long ban, because, you know, Tony, you wouldn't want to do that because he can come back. But if it's a multi-year ban, you could terminate it, right? What Juventus have done with Pogba is pay him €2,000 a month. They've reduced his wages. So he's still contract, but they're only paying him €2,000 a month. Now, they could do something like that. There is an option to sue. Chelsea did this in 2010. I forget the guy's
Adrian
name. Adrian Mutu. That was done cocaine, and they won about 15 million in the courts. So there is
West Ham wouldn't sue Paqueta though, would they?
Yeah, if we'd lost everything, why wouldn't they? We're a business. Why wouldn't we recover any money if we think he's got assets, right? And he's got property and companies, and he's no longer ever going to play for us. Why would we not sue him? That's just good business, Stel, isn't it not?
I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit too soft. I just sort of think to myself.
Well, you do work for charity, Stel, so I would imagine that. And you do vote for the other side, so I wouldn't surprise you not going for the jugular.
So that kind of leads on to transfers, of course, because, I mean, I deliberately... don't do any transfer stories until at least the transfer window opens. I've dropped one or two over the last couple of days, but I don't really believe in them much, to be quite honest with you, until there's something a bit more concrete. So, I mean, we heard that we've got 3 specific targets. I mean, Nigel, two centre backs. What does that say about our defence, and a striker? Let's start with the centre backs first. I mean, is it a surprise that we're targeting centre backs as our priority after shipping 71 goals?
No, the last season was the defence was the problem. You know, we scored. What did we end up with? 60 goals. That's in the top 5 goal scoring seasons in the Premier League for West Ham. I know it don't feel like it, but it was. So, but obviously it was the worst defensive ever put out by West Ham. And you know, there's various ways of looking at it. Was the problem actually in midfield as well, that we allowed them to come onto us too much? But I mean, we can all you know, we can all see. We all know Aged don't want to play for West Ham, wants out. So there's one. Ogbonna, age was definitely caught up with him.
Yeah, he's definitely gone.
So there's 2 out of the 4. That leaves Mavropanos, who was probably signed as a backup, and Zuma, who we can all see struggles, even though he played 33 games in all comps this season, maybe more. So he's gone through the season. He played a lot of football. He hardly ever got subbed off either, did he? So, but he has a laboured way of running, and that we can all see that perhaps doesn't bode well. So therefore, I mean, if it's only 2 centre halves, I'll be surprised unless we're going to bring in one of the boys from the youth team,
or we're going to trust in Mavropanos to maybe come good.
Well, yeah, but then but that is trusting on Mavropanos to come good, because how long can realistically Zuma? What's Zuma approaching? 30 now.
He's 30, 31, yeah.
Yeah,
30.
and with his, he's on a downward spiral anyway due to his age. Without throwing in the bad injuries that he had that would have all built up. So realistically, you are looking at 2-3 centre backs, and then we're looking at a centre forward. Let's hope we finally get one right, because at the end of the day, the best strikers West Ham have had, let's get it right. Antonio wasn't signed as a striker. Bowen wasn't signed as a striker. They've been our best goal scoring threats the last few years. So the last good striker we probably had, madly, was probably Andy Carroll. And that was in his first season when he was on loan.
Yeah. And then he started to get his injuries as well.
Yeah. And then so we've not been blessed with striking options.
I'm gonna ask Sean, I'm gonna ask you a curveball question here, because I remember when we signed Zuma, and there was the stories that were going from Moyes was trying to decide between Milenkovic of Fiorentina and Zuma. And I remember back then, how many seasons ago was that? 3, I think, maybe. And we kept hearing the stories where Moyes was going to go for Milenkovic, and then Zuma became available, so he was trying for that. Then it was back on Milenkovic, and then there was something about agents. Milenkovic's agents wanted more money, and so on and so forth. In the outcome is we ended up. We knew Kurt Zuma's injury record. It was no secret that he had problems with his knees, etc., etc. So was this another Moyes error? I didn't want to go back on Moyes, but was this another Moyes error where there was Milenkovic who hardly ever got injured? He's about 4 years younger and he was half the money. Or was it Moyes going, it's got to be Zuma or no one?
Moyes wanted Zuma. He pushed it through against maybe some reservations elsewhere in the club. But he's the manager. You've got to back the manager. I mean, Zuma's done quite well for us, but we knew about his knee. The knee came up in the medical. Manager still said he wanted him. I mean, again, it's water under the bridge now. It is what it is. We all knew, we all knew what it was like. And he's still a good servant to us when he can stay fit. He has, even though a bit like, was it Carlton Cole? Was it also Andy Carroll? They all played with injuries where they had special training programs. So is he any different? I don't see it as an error. I see we backed our manager, and which is what we should do, and we should back our head coach and our director of football going forward.
Zuma's not been bad for West Ham, has he?
No, I don't think so.
Well, every season he's missed at least a third of each season that he's been at West Ham.
It's just managing.
Has he missed a third of this season? Then?
Sorry, mate.
Has he missed a third of this season? I don't think he has.
I think he's played. It wouldn't surprise me if he's played
him on the European games. I think is what a lot of the European games, Nigel, is what they're saying. He's saying,
and I think it was because Agurd's strange injury that kept him out, apart from playing for his international team. Almost had no choice. It looked like Zuma was playing through. It looked like Zuma was playing through the pain.
I'm sure that's right. But he's not alone in that. I think I like Nigel, and I hate to agree with him, but I like to disagree. I think he's done all right. I think he's been a good signing. Yeah, all right. You knew he's not going to be a 50 games, but who would have known when we bought him? We're going to have 3 seasons in a row where we played 50 to 60 games, right? That was dream world. I mean, if you go, yeah, well, we're going to sign Kirk Zuma, and we're going to play between 55 and 60 games for next season, people go, yeah, come off it, you know? So there is a little bit of sympathy, you know, water under the bridge, hindsight and everything, but you just go...
What about this comment from Troj, Nigel? We can't afford 2 quality centre-backs. That's pretty much true, isn't it? You know, we're going to get onto transfers and how much money we've got to spend. Because it's not going to go very far for the number of players we need to get.
But then but this is the thing about it is the one thing West Ham's never been able to do is have consistent quality, because we ain't the type of club, people may be surprised to say or whatever, that has top quality players willing to sit on the bench and wait for another top quality player to have a bad game for them to come in and play it. We're not that kind of club. So our best seasons are when we've got a great 12, 13 players, like top quality, and they don't get injured. So if you look at Moyes' season where he finished 6th, I don't think the injuries were that bad. So he got away with only playing, 12, 13, 14 players, and he could play them week in, week out in the league, and that's how he got to finish 6th. Because it was the only full season he ever managed West Ham without European football.
Yeah. So in terms of transfers then, I mean, we hear an awful lot of stories, and when it comes to centre-backs, keep hearing about this guy.
You said, hang on a minute, Stel. You said you don't do transfer rumours.
No, I don't.
Put up a transfer rumour.
I know. I've got a few of them, actually, to be quite honest with you, because I thought...
I thought, well done. You don't do transfer rumours unless you know something, right?
I'll tell you why I put him up. I'll tell you why I picked about 3. The reason why I have, I could have put up... If you remember when you first met me, Sean, and you interviewed me on More Than Just a Podcast, you asked me where I got all my stories from on transfers, and I told you I just went straight through News Now. And every bloody transfer story around. Now I'm a little bit more careful. Apparently, this one is almost across the line. I mean,
he's a Brazilian, is he? This is a Brazilian.
He is indeed.
So all I know, right? I don't know whether that's happening. What I do know is we went out scouting. Tim Steidten went over to scout some players in Brazil.
Yeah.
That we do like some players in Brazil. Tim Steidten likes a South American, and we're likely to bring some South Americans in. So I know that much, but I don't know whether that player is one of them.
I thought you had some exclusive for us.
No. I look. If I know about, if I get a real sniff of going, look, the agents, we're doing this, we're doing that, I'll say so. I used to play the game of following the reports, but most of it, it's so difficult to say. I'll wait until I know something. I definitely know we're out in Brazil watching games. Definitely know one of them at least is a defender. And I know Tim Steidten likes. I mean, if you remember, we sent out the guys just left. Newman, wasn't it?
That's right. He was out there in 2022.
So it's interesting that they've got rid of him. I mean, obviously there's no room in Lopetegui's new and Tim Steidten with his brother coming in Moritz, but who knows, Stel? I mean, I'm sure we'll find out soon, but who knows? It's all a bit of speculation at the moment. But what I've been told is we're going to sign. They hope to sign 3 players by the end of June, 2 to 3 players. They want to get some of their business done early.
Okay, and that would be good because we've heard that for the last couple of seasons, and then right at the last day of the season,
different day.
Of the transfer window.
Let's hope that
those days are gone.
Remember, the international window doesn't open to the 1st July. Lopetegui does not start his official paid work until the 1st July, as I said before, and people go,
and we're gonna have him for free. I know. This is the squad that is there at the moment. I think I've got everybody, and I've separated the players out according to who I think will be absolute starters, who I think will become squad players, and who are likely are likely to leave. I mean,
Jesus.
If we know that Lopetegui likes a 25-man squad, we know that he likes to rotate his players and uses all subs, etc. So by that very nature, we're going to need something like about 12 players. And hang on, academy players aside, and I know people, when I've done a show, I know people said, well, some of the academy players will come in. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But if Lopetegui wants a 25-man squad with 8 homegrown players, he's going to have to bring in 12 players, which he ain't going to do. So I've got players on the right-hand side. I mean, we know Johnson is just, he's not staying.
Johnson's definitely 100% going. Mumbama is 100% going as well. I got that confirmed. It's going to go to tribunal for compensation
because he was an academy player.
Well, anyone under 24 years old goes to tribunal. I think he's going to Sunderland, Mumbama. I was just making the analogy of Robert Hall. Do you remember Robert Hall? Who we offered a contract. We offered a contract and he didn't.
2010.
He went to Bolton. They in tribunal they wanted to offer a lot less. They ended up paying 450,000 for him. Then up front, 250,000 if they got promoted to the Premier League, which they never did. That after that, not while he was playing for them. They had to pay £10,000 per appearance for him in the Championship, and he paid 34. And I think it was 50,000 per Premier League for the first 100 as well. So, it was quite a good deal. But you know what? Nothing happened. He didn't really hit the ground running. He left on a 3. He joined Oxford. And he's 30 years old now. I just looked it up, Nigel. He's playing for Richmond and Hampton down the road from me, long league football. So, they don't always get it right.
So a similar sort of thing is going to happen with Mumbama if they get get promoted.
Name me one that has left. Nigel might be able to. Name me one that was left in this situation and really done well. Maybe Junior Stanislas is possibly the only one.
I mean, Junior Stanislas, he went up to Burnley first with Zavon Irons, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
And they both really struggled there. But I think Stanislas was lucky because I think Burnley were managed by Eddie Howe at the time, who then went back to Bournemouth and took Stanislas with him. And it took him a few years to get back. He had a good career, Stanislas. I don't think he probably could have had a good career with West Ham as such, but did he set the world alight? Not really.
Anyway, we do this a lot. We're digressing from your agenda, Stel.
No, there's no agenda.
As he said, there is no agenda.
Mumbama is leaving.
But I've got a few slides to help us along.
But I definitely know Ogbona's leaving. I definitely know Cresswell's staying. I definitely know Fabianski's saying. Obviously, Kera's already gone.
Yeah.
Ben Rama will go if the French financial authorities give the okay to Lyon to pay the 15 million. They do want him, but they've got to get permission first.
So then that leaves another 3. I mean,
Downs and Southampton definitely want Downs. There is no option. There is no obligation. They definitely want Downs.
I mean, Nigel. I mean, Downs has done really well in the Championship, and the jury's out with West Ham fans because, ironically, we would normally look for a very good Championship player to maybe bring in to West Ham United, and Downs has been superb. Absolutely. I mean, even the final against Leeds.
Does he get in this team? Does he get in this team?
Could he get in this team? This is the big thing. It depends on who we buy. I mean,
he's playing week in, week out for Southampton. He's done very well, right? Does he get in this team? Is he a first team starter? And if the answer's no, I would say Downs might be better where he is. I know he's a West Ham fan. I know he's from Brentwood and all of that lot. But
don't we need one of the things we need is strength in depth. So wouldn't Downs? Yes, he probably wouldn't be a starter regularly. But Nigel, I mean, West Ham fan aside, etc., he's done exceptionally well. Wouldn't he be the kind of caliber of player that you'd want to bring in, even if he was, on the bench? And we hear that Lopetegui likes to use subs, so he'll probably get quite a bit of game time. Not necessarily a starter, but surely it would be a no-brainer, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
I mean, if you look at his position, Lopetegui, much like Moyes, likes to play with the two sort of sitters in a way, which is Alvarez, and then I don't know. It would almost look like three sitters at times, though, with Moyes, didn't it? With Ward-Prowse and Souček as well as Alvarez there. But if you want to compete on not just on the league, on the cups, and cope with injuries, like I said, then realistically we've got to be trying to convince Downs to stay with West Ham. He will listen, even if he's Alvarez's deputy, yeah, he's going to get 10 games, isn't he? Because of Alvarez going to be banned.
Yeah.
Because every 5 games he gets a couple of games banned for all the yellow cards that he gets. So Downs he will get game time. Hopefully we do well in the cups. We ain't got Europe, so there's going to be less cup games going around. But I think it would be silly to not try and convince him. It's up to him. The funny thing is, the only thing I say is you got to be truthful with him. Tell him, are you a starter or not? Sit down with him. This is what we think. Do you want to do this at West Ham? Hopefully the lure of being a fan may stay, but then again, he may choose Southampton. There ain't one Southampton fan that's got a bad word to say about him. Yeah. And it's basically...
And the manager loves him because he bought him at Swansea. He's had him at Southampton.
So there is that connection as well.
Came to the semi-final, was behind the fans in the West Stand behind us. So he travelled down from Southampton just to be at the semi-final with the rest of the fans. But I don't believe Lopetegui. I've been told it's down to the head coach. I nearly said manager. I've got to get out of that habit. It's down to the head coach. I'm not convinced. If we can get 15, 16 million for him, there's a reason I say 15.5 million for him. I think they go.
Why is that so significant?
So tonight, without Paquetá, 85 million, right? I've always said Nigel knows this. We budget a certain amount of money for transfers, right? If you look historically, that's somewhere between 25 and 40. Let's call it 30 million, right? And people laugh and go, oh, that can't be right. I'm talking about net funds. That's how much we spend. If you look back over the last 10 years, it's around about 30 million, right? A lot of it's been spent in the recent one, but it does even itself out. We earn around extra revenue, around 30 million from Europa League. That's from prize money and ticket revenue by playing those games at the London Stadium. So it's a roundabout, and they have coefficient bonus, etc. So there's about a pot of 60 million. And some people go, that's not enough, right? But this is roughly what people budget for, right? The finance teams do. On top of that, you've got Kehrer, 9.5 million already sold. You're hoping you're going to get 15 million. Well, if you add in Downs for 15.5 million to get the question you asked me, it comes to a nice round 100 million budget.
But how many all right, Nigel, we've heard that the priority is 2 centre-backs and a striker. None of those come cheap. And someone said earlier, unless we get Guehi from Crystal Palace for nothing, we could, Sean, we can spend all of that 100 million on just 3 players. Which is not going to fill the squad. So what's Nigel, what's 100 million going to buy West Ham United in this day and age? Given the fact that we've got to have homegrown players in the squad as well. And we all know that homegrown players have British players have a levy on them. They always go for a lot more than, I'm not going to say more than they're worth, but they are more expensive than overseas players.
I mean, when you look at it, 100 million, just to stand still, we need 7 players. Just to stand still. Before people use the new buzzword, which is progression, I want to see progression, which was a word I never used ever about football, going football. I've never thought, I really want to see progression. So just to stand still, we need 7 players. So, what are you looking at there? 12 million a player. What does 12 million a player buy you?
Not a lot.
Half a Yarmolenko, isn't it?
But you know what? Isn't this right? What is Sneijden called? The Pearl Diver. The reason we brought him in is do a little bit of money ball, right? To bring in some of these players, these gems. So no, we're not going to go to the Premier League. We're looking at 2 things. We're looking at the South American market, the European market, right? For squad players and maybe the odd striker. If we look at what we need to fill the squad, we need 8 players, right? We're 3 down. The 3 players we're losing, Ben Johnson, Connor Coventry, who left in January, and what's the third one?
Homegrown?
Yeah, homegrown.
Well, Joseph Anang is going.
Joseph Anang, if he goes. But, I mean, it doesn't make any difference whether Hegarty comes up. Anang's 23. And I think Nathan Trott is leaving as well. But that's because they've just not made the grade, right? So it doesn't make a difference whether they are in or out. People like George Earthy, obviously, worth saying, doesn't need a squad place because he's 19 years old. Anyone under 21 can play in the senior team without taking a squad place. So you don't always have to fill all 25. But I think if I was Tim Sneijden, you look at value in the Championship and say, who's done well? Where can we get value? Because, if people think we're going to carry on spending 150 million, 200 million, think again. We spent big with David Moyes. Now, just to answer a question of someone asked is, how do we look, right, for FFP, both the Premier League FFP and Europe, right? 70% for Europe and etc. There's one big thing, right, that happened last July that is a get out of jail free card. And do you know what that was?
Selling Declan Rice.
Correct. Selling Declan Rice. That is £100 million straight line profit. Now, in a quirk of accounting regulations, when you sell a player, you book all 100 million in the season he's sold. But when you buy a player, you immortalize it over 3 or 4 years. Yeah, depreciate the value over the contract. So in a quirk, FFP is not an issue for Premier League or Europe if we were in Europe this season, because we bank £100 million, right, straight as a profit, on top of, I've estimated, 265 million turnover. So our turnover is going to be around 365. We won't find out till January next year. But that means FFP is not even a thing. But you still got to look. Turnover is one thing. You've got to talk about cash, right? How much cash have we got? Where is that cash going to go for? Is David Sullivan, the Golds, or Kredinsky going to inject more cash? No way. Not in a million years. It hasn't happened for a long time since the pandemic, when they injected 30 million then. And then obviously when Kredinsky came in, they injected more cash. They're not going to inject cash. So we have to live within our means. So that means how much we've budgeted. You look at what the wages cost, what we call admin fees. It's all in the accounts. And on average, then have a look of what we're going to have left over from that turnover to spend. And it's going to be that around that. It's going to be around the 60 million plus player sales.
So given the fact that we've got about 100 million, I actually worked it out. I think I did the show this morning. I think I worked it out to about 120 million without the Paquetá money.
How'd you get to that figure?
Did you sell sales that we've done, for now sales, etc.
No, forget that. Forget
but
any
speculated that we had about 40
people love
million.
doing this, yeah.
But we also had about 40 million that we didn't spend in January. That goes in.
Forget that.
How
That doesn't count. That doesn't count.
Right.
It doesn't.
Okay. So given the fact that we've got around 100 million, given the fact that we've got to have 8 homegrown players to have
plus the Paquetá money.
Well, we can kiss that goodbye, can't we, really?
People do love going, oh, we didn't spend that money from 3 years ago, so it must be in the pot. It doesn't work like that in finance. It certainly doesn't work like that in football club.
Does that mean then that either that Chaz's question here, what youngsters do you think will stay? and who do you think would be loaned out, or will we get? I mean, there's a lot of excitement about George Earthy, Callum Marshall, who went out on loan. Although
George
admittedly,
Marshall was rewarded with that. So what has been the previous,
because he signed his
why
new deal.
Mbama didn't go out is, sign a new contract, we'll loan you out, but we're not going to progress your career. David Moyes' view was you have to go out to the Championship to be ready for the Premier League. I don't know what Lopetegui's like on whether he feels he's got to cut the teeth of people before they're ready for the Premier League, or could you throw? I mean, George Earthy has shown. I can't remember. Did George Earthy go out on any? He hasn't been to a Championship.
No, George Earthy didn't go out on loan. No.
So he might cut his, go, well, look, you've done really well. You come on and you scored a goal. You might try him out, and equally you might loan him out. I don't know.
What's your feeling, Nigel, on because we've been hearing the thing against Moyes was he doesn't use the youngsters. And Sean said, and as we all know, not many of our academy players have gone on to become Premier League footballers. Very few. Reece Burke, I think, is it Reece Burke who played for Luton this season?
Yeah,
he was an academy player. We had someone else. What's his name? Who came back with Burnley?
Callum.
Callum.
Let's see if he goes. Let's see if he goes Bayern Munich. Yeah.
Who?
Callum.
Really?
You think?
No, I said let's see, because let's face it. He went to Anderlecht. Why? The company signed him. Why did he go to Burnley?
Because of company.
Right. Well, if
yeah.
If he's that.
I've got you now. I've got you.
Yeah.
That would be hilarious.
It ain't gonna happen. Cullen's a good player.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. People look at all these players. Yeah. So I look at Reece Burke playing in the Premier League, Cullen playing in the Premier League. They're playing at the bottom end of the table. If you want West Ham to be challenging for Europe, and you want West Ham to be challenging for top 7, well, I hate to break it to you. You ain't doing that off the back of West Ham playing the kids.
Well, this is the argument, isn't it? The argument that's been going on for quite some time, Nigel, is David Moyes. I'm sorry, it seems to be going back to Moyes all the time, and that wasn't the intention. But David Moyes doesn't use the youngsters, and I've always argued if the youngsters are good enough, they get a chance. George Earthy being case in point. Now, ironically, and I know they've been many of them have had their debuts for nothing games or only been given 5 minutes here, etc. But Moyes has actually blooded, I think, more academy players in the senior side.
Yeah,
than any other.
I get it, but the thing is, and you can go back to the Dinamo Zagreb game still, where he put 6 or 7 out in one go.
Yeah.
So actually it's a listen, people go, oh, he never played the youths. Moyes will go, I gave 22 kids their debut. Well, yeah, but how many of those kids played more than 5 games?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's my point. That's my point. Yeah,
so before,
so they're token gestures, really.
Yeah. So there is that fact that you got to take into consideration.
Okay, I asked the question in a show the other day. What happens to Lopetegui as a head coach if he doesn't play? Because everyone now is speculating. Oh, they're doing the math. We need 25 players in the squad. We can only afford maybe 6 or 7. Of course, he's going to flood the senior squad with academy players. What happens, Nigel, if Lopetegui doesn't use academy players? How will he be? How will he be perceived?
Well, no. I listen. At the end of the day, he gets a clean slate, doesn't he? He comes in. It is a clean slate. So. Here's a thing, isn't it? The thing about Moyes is, I put a thing up the other day on the website where I said, advice to Lopetegui, if someone asked me, give him advice, I'd say, get the results that Moyes achieved, but do it playing redneck football. Because the thing is, I think David Moyes isn't West Ham manager now, down to the fan backlash against the way he played. And at times, I'm on record as saying, but Jesus Christ, West Ham bored the shite out of me at times, watching them. So before people put me down as being a Moyes apologist, I'm not. But at the end of the day, you know, we did score a lot of goals under David Moyes' football. And we'd also conceded a lot of goals, which is probably which is realistically his undoing. The fact that when you're playing defensive football, the idea is to not concede. And he's done it worse than Avram Grant. If Lopetegui's coming in with a clean slate, but I don't know. Everybody's got their own perception of what West Ham should be achieving. The thing is, we've just had 3 years in Europe. Never been done before in West Ham's history. Not many managers have managed to get 3 top 10 finishes. You know, so Moyes done it. Moyes only had 4 full seasons managing West Ham. You know, John Lyall, I think, had 4 top 10 finishes, and he managed West Ham for 12 years in the top division and 3 outside. So I think even Ron Greenwood had about 4 or 5 top 10 finishes. You know, the highest Ron Greenwood ever got West Ham was 6, and he had more worse than Peters for half of his time as managing West Ham. So, you know, and I know that's all about the past, but this is something that runs through the DNA of West Ham. This is the club that we are. So therefore, when people say, "Oh, I expect us to be challenging the top 6," show me the evidence of that. Why you think that? Because I can come up with loads of reasons why you shouldn't think that. Now it's up to people. If that's what you want from football, if that's what you want from West Ham, that's, you know, who am I to say you're an idiot? But if you think West Ham are going to be challenging top 6 and then challenging top 4, I'll tell you now, we can look back at this in 3, 4, 5 years' time. It ain't going to happen. It is not going to happen. You might do, and people can look at Villa. Villa are on the borderline of FFP.
They are. I was about to say that. Yeah, so, they're in real financial trouble.
So let's see. You know, let's see how Villa handle.
They couldn't win. They couldn't be champions of Europe, could they? At the end of the day,
you know, they've done well. They got into 4th spot, and that's a fantastic achievement.
Did we ever think though we'd be in Europe 3 years running? If you look back, I know BK. What, you know, you're saying, you know, you never know. There is that odd thing. And this is where you find the gems, right? Because can we afford 12 players? No, but I see that Steiden is aiming for that sort of 15 to 20 million euro kind of range. That gets you 6 players for 100 million, right? Now, if you sell someone like Ger for 30 million, big if, that gets you quite a lot more of 15, 20 million euros. But that's if he's going to be a pearl diver. If you start seeing that we're looking for a 60 million player or a 50 million player, I don't see any marquee signings this summer. I see a lot of good gambles where we're going, do you know what? This has got everything we need in a player to make it in the Premier League. And if we get 3 out of 4 right on that, you know, a bit like Kudus. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, all right, we paid a lot more money for him, but, you know, we have got some gems before. I'm trying to think of one.
I mean, some people have talked about, you know, the youngsters and that Lopetegui. We know that he was successful with the under 19s and the under 21,
under 20s, yeah.
Spain. They won the championship there. So he knows young players. He's not afraid. And I talked about the side he had at Seville, where he had about 2 or 3 youngsters in that team, young players who have gone on. I think one of them went on to Barcelona or wherever it is they went on to. And I mean, Ben's saying, you know, at least Lopetegui coaches players. You're underestimating our youngsters. They'll get more out of them than Moyes ever did.
But are any of them good enough, apart from George Murphy, right? I want to challenge you, right? Because Moyes does get this blame for not playing the youngsters, but how many of them make the grade? If you look at, all right, Ben Johnson made the grade. Declan Rice made the grade, right? But it's been few and far between. We've been here before, right? We believe George Murphy is going to do it, but I remember being convinced that Freddie, what was his name? Freddie Sears. I couldn't believe how no manager could play him. I forget who the manager was, and Danny Potts, couldn't believe that Danny Potts wasn't getting his. So, as West Ham fans, we always think we know better, but we know that the development squad, what used to be the under-23s, is not a patch on the competitiveness of a Premier League. You can't just say, oh, well, this Callum Marshall was banging him in for fun. He scored 30 goals, so it set the Premier League on fire. The reality is, are our academy really that great that a number of them get in the first squad? I don't know the answer, but be careful of trying to say we need a manager who gives them all a chance, because we're not a Man United or a Chelsea with the best talent in the world. We've got some good.
But then other people would argue. I mean, Nigel, you know the history far more than any of us in terms of the caliber of youngsters that we've had through. I mean, the irony is, was it the season that we went down when we had some of the best youngsters around? Cole and various others who then all went on, didn't they? They went to Chelsea and they went to Man U and they went to wherever, and they forged great careers under different teams. I mean, but that's the trap we fall into, isn't it? I mean, if there was ever a time we had a great crop of youngsters, but
when you look at that, how often does eras like that come around?
Well,
West Ham,
exactly.
Very rarely. So I mean, look, there's possibly there's I would imagine probably 3 or 4 of those youth players that won the Youth Cup that should be given a chance. Funny enough, I think Mubama got shortchanged a bit by Moyes, but some of that was his own doing, because at the end of the day, he constantly said, "I'm not signing a new contract." If he'd have signed a new contract, I believe he would have been played more. And the fact is, quite right, in my opinion, if the bloke don't want to sign a new contract and commit his future to West Ham, why the hell should we play him? And further his career, because he's walking away for next to nothing. We get a tribunal, but he's walking away for next to nothing.
We'll probably get about £1 million. But here's
the same thing with Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson refused to sign a contract.
No,
why should we further his career?
They would both sign a contract, but they both want first team wages. If it's believed what I'm told, Ben Johnson wanted 60 sovs a week plus, and Mumbama wanted first team wages, not incentivized, but he wanted first team wages. And this is the curse of agents.
I don't know. I think with Ben Johnson, I think he has been shortchanged, frankly, on the.
It's too late now.
No. That's what I'm saying. I think when you look at it, I think he has been shortchanged.
You would have paid him 60 grand a week and said, "Well, that's what other people are earning. You've earned your place."
Yeah,
I think in the end he went off, and I think he's going to Palace.
But the irony of that, Sean, is that he'll go off. We will need a right back that we'll probably end up paying 50 odd grand a week for.
But we burnt our bridges. Either Moyes wouldn't sign off on it and say he's worth 60 grand a week. 60 grand a week is probably an average in Premier League terms. But he's a youngster. Maybe he's been offered more at Palace. He gets a signing-on fee. The agent gets more money for a free agent. Let's not forget that, right? There's no such thing as a free agent anymore. Someone said, "Oh yeah, we're going to sign this goalkeeper, but fee is a problem." It won't be. And they go, "Well, how can it be the fee if it's a free agent?" Well, it's a signing-on fee and the bloody agent fee. It's always the bloody agent fee. Agents want millions now to make sure the free agent comes to you, and because they've got their clients here and they go to that place, and this is the power they hold now. Not go tell their client where to go, what's best for their career. They go where it's best for the agent, and that's the world we live in now. And agents control free agents now, and we may be looking at some free agents. We may be looking at some loan signings this season, because I don't know. Did Lopetegui? I don't know enough about his career, whether he likes to utilise loans and free agents, but that's another option for him, isn't it?
I don't know, to be honest.
I know Moyes didn't like that, but you don't know under the new head coach.
I mean, I've not really looked too much at Lopetegui, but I mean, he's I don't know. You know, he did well at Seville, but then again, you know, his Seville team got beat by West Ham. You know?
Well, he wanted. He did.
You know, he was that
Craig,
good at Seville that we turned up and beat him.
He wanted Craig Dawson, right? And he got him. And he wanted Cresswell. And Cresswell's move, if you remember, £2.5 million move to Wolves only fell out because he walked away from the Wolves job.
That's right.
And Gary O'Neill didn't want him, and he got really upset about that.
You know, the stories are that Lopetegui's been offered a king's ransom to in the transfer window to go out and buy players. It's not going to be that way. Ransom?
No. We just can't. You got to look at the finance. Look at people just get carried away and go, "Well, that's not enough money." It's pure finance. Have a look at what we spend, right? Literally, look at last year's accounts. Look what we spend. Take a few averages, how much it's increased in Europe, etc. Whatever's left, right, we can spend. Now, can we make a loss? We can make a loss, but within certain parameters are we allowed to make losses. Money has to come from somewhere. As David Sullivan once told me, right? If you lose £100 million, at some point you've got to pay £100 million back. Where does that money come from? We're not a country like America or the UK that keeps on borrowing money on bonds from other countries with no intention of paying it back. Football clubs are like companies. At some point, we've got to pay them back. We can't keep on overspending, borrowing. At some point, it's like a credit card. It's going to catch up with us. We're going to have to pay it.
And then many fans will argue
the last few seasons.
You know the counter argument to that, and the campaign that Nigel led on. You know, when we're still at the old ground. You know, therefore, if the money's not, you know, if we don't have that vast amount of money for transfers. What was the point of moving from the stadium? What about all the TV money? What about all the money from Europe? What about, you know,
Still, how I would answer that still is, and this is the thing, is that West Ham's earning more money. You know, one of the big things is, I see it earlier. John Lowell didn't spend 400 million. No, but he broke a world record transfer in signing a goalkeeper and broke British transfer records in signing defenders, Ray Stewart, and then Paul Goddard was also, I think, a British record for as well at the time for a teenager. So West Ham did spend money and what could be reputed at the time as big money on players when needed. But that was football back then. Football back now, we've got to spend 100-odd million just to stand still. When you look at we finished 9th, look at the 8 teams that finished above us and tell me the team that you think West Ham, historically, overall, before the season started, did you expect West Ham to finish above? Probably, you could go Aston Villa, maybe.
Yeah,
but Villa are roughly
spending money for a long time.
There's 2 teams there, realistically, which is Villa and Newcastle, who predominantly are in where I would say is if you got the 5 and Spurs in the top 6, then you got us, Newcastle, Villa, Everton should actually be in that middle bunch of the teams coming up. Well, realistically,
you're right. Villa can't keep on spending though.
No,
Nigel, they can't keep on spending like this, and nor can Newcastle. There comes a limit with FFP and the new things they're going to bring in, and Europe. You just can't keep on spending. In the end, it catches up with you.
So our spending, in a way, has been quite. I don't want to call it frugal. It's been.
No, it's not been frugal. We've been spending.
It's been considered.
We've pushed it to limits. Imagine you've got a credit limit. We've pushed it to the limits, and now we've got to be a bit sensible. Nigel's always said we should be sustainable. You know, we're now.
I think if you look, we're roughly spending, funny enough, for a mid-table team. Yeah. That's what we're spending. Well, guess what? That's what we are. And the thing is, we can't spend what FFP's done, and people do finally realise that now, has it stopped the teams like West Ham from becoming permanently, from joining, or a lot of other clubs from permanently joining the top 4 or top 6. Look at Newcastle. Newcastle were where Villa were. But then a season in Europe, they couldn't strengthen them, not because they didn't have the money. Newcastle can buy any player in the world if money was no option. But they can't, can they? Because they're handcuffed by FFP. So therefore, they've finished 7th for now by the win of the FA Cup. They don't even have you don't even have European football to play next season.
Do you think the new rules that the Premier League are voting on will make
none.
it?
Anchoring. I saw the one flash up about anchoring. No. Anchoring will do nothing. Even at the best one, right? Whether it's 4.5, 5, or 6, work it out, right?
Keeps the status quo.
Look at the multiple. You're right, status quo. Look at the multiple. So it's 4.5, 5 times, or 6 times a multiple of the lowest amount of money the bottom team received. Now, if we go on last season, that's 105 million. Times that. Right, this is supposed to be a sort of spending cap, right? Times it, right? No one comes near, apart from Chelsea just last year, but on the lowest one, 4.5 multiple. Bet it won't be 4.5. I'll bet it'll be 5 or 6. If it's 5 or 6, it doesn't touch anyone. It certainly is nothing to us, and it isn't anything to Man City because that spending cap just stops it going even more silly in the future. It's drawing a line in the sand and says, do you know what? As the revenue, football revenue is not going up. So let's say it's 105, right? It means that you can't spend more than 450 million. But guess what? You get little loopholes of, oh, well, this spending is excluded and this spending excluded. You know, on image rights that don't include.
Let's pick Adam up here because Adam loves it. West Ham can spend 350 a season under anchoring rules. What can the others spend, Ad? What can the others spend? Go and check what they can spend because I bet you they can spend more. And this is the thing is, yeah, we could spend 350 million. Newcastle could spend 600 million. Yeah, Man United can spend $1 billion.
But what Adam's forgetting is the two rules are in conjunction. So you can't spend 350 million because the anchoring rules has come in for a second regulation. The first regulation will be, if I remember rightly, 85% of your turnover, right? So if your turnover and normal turnover, all right, it'll be 365 this season because of the one-off Declan Rice. Next season, it'll be around the sort of 250 mark, right? So 250, you can spend 85%. Quickly do the maths.
But Sean, it don't matter because
you still can't spend it.
No, it's not that. It's can you outspend the teams above you? And
no,
the answer
you're right.
is
You're all in
no.
The, yeah,
so
no.
Actually, it's fucking pointless.
It's there to keep everybody. You're right. Yeah. It's there to keep everybody in place. It might slow Chelsea down a little bit, but they're not worth the paper they're written on, Stel. They're really not. These anchoring rules and the new, if anything, they're a lot more relaxed than the current rules. So the current rules that caught Everton and Nottingham Forest out was the amount of losses you're allowed to make. When you turn that into a straight 85%, at the moment, Europe, it was 80% this year, it's 70% next year, which we're not in the competition, right? So of your turnover, minus what we call virtual spending. But, you know, there's a lot more loopholes and very well-paid lawyers. If you listen to the price of football, very well-paid lawyers will get round of, oh, that doesn't count and that doesn't count and this does, you know. Yeah. Suddenly, we're spending 100 million on women's football and an academy. Yeah, right. Because that's what everyone does. Ask Kenny Brown, the academy manager, go, how much of the money that we put in the books do you get? It's the biggest wheeze out there.
So that must mean, you know, given all the, you know, how many players we need and stuff like that, and maybe the academy players aren't the answer. It must mean that Andy Irving coming back to pre-season from Clattenburg, the Austrian Bundesliga club. For those of you who don't know, we bought Andy Irving for $1.5 million last season. Yeah. He's an under-21 Scottish, a former under-21 Scottish international. Is that
doesn't
quite
count
a good
as
season,
homegrown, does he?
He's the answer, isn't he?
Still doesn't count as homegrown being Scottish, though, does he?
Well, of course he does. Why
He
wouldn't
doesn't. No.
Because he was
I think
in
Sean.
he played for Hearts, didn't he?
I
For
thought
a number
the
of years.
Scottish League didn't count. It had to be England and
does.
Wales to be homegrown.
Does
Are you
it
sure
not?
about that? I thought Robert Snodgrass didn't qualify as homegrown for the same thing.
It's a British player. It's not an English or Welsh player.
I might stand corrected, but I'm going to check that while we're on air. But Andy Irvine, he is coming back. According to him, he's coming back pre-season. Is he competitive enough for the Premier League? I don't know. I was always told it was a Steiden deal to have a sort of feeder club and do loans and deals with that Austrian club, and the transfer fee was a way of paying the money. Completely above board, of course. Stel. Let's see if he ever plays a game for West Ham. I'm not convinced.
Well, let's see what happens in pre-season.
Yeah.
2 questions to probably finish off.
I asked about pre-season. I might have an exclusive for you at the end, but let's save that for you.
Okay, well, we'll wait for that because you haven't said much tonight, Sean. So we do want to hear from you.
I'm glad he's not staying long still.
Is that what he said to you?
I did actually say I doubt Sean will stay that long, but there you go.
It's work tomorrow. I do.
Yeah, I know.
Time at 11 o'clock, so you've got only 9 minutes left.
This is from Jason. Any more news on West Ham trying to get more investment into the club?
That's the answer. No. There you go.
Karen Brady has been looking, and she's on a 7-figure bonus to bring someone in, but the answer is no. She's been looking at the Middle East.
So I mean, let's go back because the story is originally Vanessa Gold had 10% to sell. That hasn't sold. Yeah. And then there's been a change of thinking and maybe pulling together 25% where certain shareholders would reduce their stake to make a 25% stake available. But that hasn't sold either.
No. So there's going to be no more investment this summer.
And Kretinsky's not our saviour, is he?
No, as the Daily Mail wrote, and I wrote before that, he's paying $3.5 billion for Royal Mail next week. I don't think he's got any intention. Actually, they quoted him with a source close to him saying, he's a Sparta Prague fan. His son's a Sparta Prague fan. He's a chairman of Sparta Prague. He doesn't get involved in football decisions. He leaves it to his 2 lieutenants because of that, to be at arm's length. And he actually said, or was allowed himself to be quoted as saying, you have to have a concrete connection to a club to own it. And I feel a bit guilty if I ever took over West Ham. And so he sort of dismissed that as an option. I'm sort of paraphrasing what the Daily Mail said, but go and read it. It was this month in where they wrote about him as whether he would take over West Ham.
Okay, here's another question, and we can finish off with this one. If we finish 9th, not as in the country as Daniel's suggestion, but in the league, if we finish 9th next season, would you be happy, Nigel?
With the position, yeah. I wouldn't be dissatisfied with that. I can't see why any West Ham fan. Well, I can see why West Ham fans won't be happy. What am I saying? But of course, it don't matter. It's not finishing 9th still, is it? For the majority, it's how we finish 9th, isn't it?
Well, here's an interesting thing because I see my mate Wiggy's been in the chat tonight, and he kept saying throughout the season, all I want is to be entertained. And a lot of fans have said that. But here's the catch, yeah. And
what is entertainment?
Sorry?
What is entertainment?
Well, entertainment is
scoring 60 goals.
Well, last season for me, entertainment was going to Prague and low blocking. In fact, if Fiorentina actually played football, they would have beaten us. But they were looking to play the dark arts rather than playing football, and our low block beat them. That was entertaining to me. But I know it's not entertaining.
But isn't it funny though? Because the low block worked for Atalanta, didn't it, against Leverkusen?
It didn't. It just
and what it shows you actually playing a low block. It's not a bad tactic. as long as you've got a fantastic front 3 or 4 that can put the ball in the net.
And a decent defence that can stop the ball from going in the net.
And I think, well, yeah, but I think actually when you look at it, if you know, if we could have had a bit better quality, Kudus, Bowen, you know, maybe someone different from Antonio, bless him. Yeah, had someone absolutely clinical up front with Bowen and Kudus, and the defence a bit more shored up. Then I think David Moyes would still be West Ham manager and not Lopetegui, because how you play against teams that want to.
Well done, Paul. I thought I was.
What you want to possession-based football teams. How do you play against them that just want to pass the ball across the back, that want to have 700 passes in a game, but only 10 shots on goal? I don't think Man City play, exciting football. I'm definitely not saying West Ham play exciting football at all under Moyes, because it wasn't exciting football. But Ralph enjoying the sun. I'll take 9th with entertaining football with a passion.
That was really it, wasn't it? That's what really lost Moyes.
Yeah, no, the football at times was stale. When you're playing a low block against Bournemouth, it was games like that. When you look at home, we lost at home to Everton, we lost at home to Fulham, we drew with Bournemouth. Those results there are really what cost him. Because away from home, I think we won 7 games. And this is the thing, under the days of Harry Redknapp, who played attacking football, or West Ham football, as you would say, Harry used to win 3 away games a season, 4 or 5 at most. It's
Sean, 9th. Would that make
I'm happy. I'm happy most of the time, right? As long as we don't get relegated, I'll be happy. I've been happy. I've been happy for the last 3 or 4 seasons. I've been enjoying my European nights. I've been going and loving going to the European nights. It's a bit of a shame, giving up the Thursday nights. I'll be happy as long as the head coach is happy. I really want him to do well. I hope fans give him time. 9th, I think, would be acceptable. 10th would be acceptable. Anything but 7th, 18th, right? I'll be, but, David Moyes' phone. He's always on the end of a phone. Hello? David Sullivan here. Yeah, we fucked up, didn't we? What, you could start on January the 1st? Yeah, we're getting rid of the Spaniard. Yeah, it didn't work out. All right, mate. Okay, be around in a minute. Bye.
Be around in a minute.
He's got a flat in Stratford. Look, I hope it works out. I enjoy going out. I'm not a purist of saying, the football must be attractive. I want goals. I want wins. Right? I'm a very simple creature when it comes to football. Right?
So that was the question that was asked. Would you be happy with 9th? What are you expecting next season? What realistically, first season for Lopetegui, a squad rebuild. I call it an evolution, rather than, I'm punning one of your phrases, Nigel, an evolution rather than a revolution, because it's going to be, it's not going to be a million miles away from what Moyes has produced in terms of football. It's going to be the mid block rather than low block. But he is more technically minded let me rephrase that. He wants his players on the pitch, very technically gifted players to fill that midfield. What's your real expectation, Nigel? You've said you'd be happy with 9th, but what's your real expectation?
This is the thing. I don't have really expectations. All I ever wanted from West Ham was like a decent cup run, not be relegated, and enjoy a game of football every now and again. That's for me. You know, that's what I want. Yeah, you know, maybe I do lack ambition. I don't ever believe West Ham's ever going to win the title in my lifetime. I'll be very, very surprised if we finish in the top 4 in my lifetime. And hopefully I've got a good 25, 30 years left in me. And I'm happy with that. Yeah, that's the West Ham that I've supported all my life. So I'm not going to suddenly throw my toys out the pram and stop supporting West Ham for that reason, or demand this and demand that. That ain't me. I go to watch the football and enjoy the football. That's predominantly all I expect. What comes after, we'll see, or what comes because of it. I won't be hung up in analysing Lopetegui's tactics, that's for sure, in how he plays or whatever. So good luck to the bloke. I hope he's the West Ham manager for the next 5 years. I do. And the reason for that is because he's done something right.
He's done Europe, yeah.
You know?
I've got to go soon, or now.
Okay.
But 6th place, FA Cup final. I'll be happy. Ambition, not expectation. Ambition.
6th place FA Cup win.
Final. No, I'm not going to say win. FA Cup final.
No, I'm saying
great day out. Great day out it would be at Wembley. I mean, look at what it meant to Man United fans, right? You know, how great is that to win? You know, you're facing City, you're thinking, write this off. How delighted were they to win the FA Cup?
Quick question before you go. Who would be your choice for captain next season? Tough one.
It is a tough one.
Alvarez?
No.
Realistically, you're looking at the likes Bowen.
I was going to say Bowen, but I don't know if Areola has got any.
You can't have a goalkeeper as a captain.
Well, you can have a goalkeeper actually.
No, you can't. It's not very good. It's not, honestly. It's not. Unless it's Fabianski, of course. No, you just can't have a goalkeeper as a captain.
Bowen would be the most obvious choice. But
I'm not a fan of having strikers as a captain. I think the best captains are midfielders or central defenders, to be honest. But at the moment, I don't really see anyone. Funny enough,
James Ward-Prowse was a captain.
Souček,
does he get in?
James Ward-Prowse won't play that many games. He won't start that many games.
Well, he might go to Southampton, of course, with Danny Ings.
He might go back to Southampton.
But, you know, they might have 3. They might have Bowen, Downs, Ings, and James Ward-Prowse in Southampton. Who knows?
How about sleeping? I think we're comatose.
Sorry.
A comment from Andrew. We're a sleeping giant. All right. And this is the last question, I promise you, because they're both asking the same thing. Sean, what's the exclusive? What's the exclusive? You promised an exclusive.
Well, so lots of
we've
people
got another half an hour.
No, lots of people have been asking me, what's the pre-season friendlies look like? Loads of people have been asking me. So obviously we have been asking. There isn't one at the moment beyond USA. However, get ready for the return of the Betway Cup.
Dagenham and Red. With Dagenham.
The Betway Cup.
Oh dear.
Week before the start of the season. Get your tickets in. Pre-season friendly back at the London Stadium. Haven't got an opposition yet, but you know.
But we'll dig. We'll maybe unearth, like German champions or something like that.
They should go out and get whoever's won the Champions Euro Conference League, shouldn't they? Either Olympiacos or.
Well, we did play. We played Bayer Leverkusen last year.
Well, we played but the Europa League. Who won the conference? The team that Skamaka now plays for.
No, that was the UEFA Cup. So the Conference League, we're still the current reigning conference champions. Still, we got till next week. We've got till Wednesday.
That was the Europa League.
If you want to make money, you want to make money, and this is about money, right? Pre-season friendly, Lazio, West Ham, Lazio. Can you imagine that?
That'd be good. All right. On that note, chaps, really much appreciated. I know it was last minute, so thank you both for coming on.
What happened to your normal guests then?
No, there weren't going to be any. I was not even going to do a show tonight. I didn't write anything because normally,
would you normally write? You normally write stuff.
No, I don't. No, the content I put out.
What's your show? Surely you don't write beforehand. Blimey.
No, I've got to write notes. If I don't write notes, I've got no idea what I'm talking about. I don't have any idea what I'm talking about when I've got notes. So
I noticed you're the only one with a modern badge there.
You what? Sorry.
You're the only one with a modern badge on your clothes.
I am. Yeah, I know. Well, no, it's not the modern badge. That's the original badge, if you know your history, because that was there before the...
Well, actually, still, if you want to go down that road, the Hammers are facing the wrong way if it's the original badge, because the point is you should face that way.
In the transmission.
So I think you're wrong there, still.
Well, anyway, thank you all. Thank you both. Much appreciated. Thank you for the last minute. But let's do another one again before you start your More Than Just a Podcast channel. By the way, people, I know I took the piss by nicking their music, etc. But if you're not a subscriber of More Than Just a Podcast, it is worth. You won't see them on YouTube. You got to listen. You actually old-fashioned way of listening, but it's a good show, and even free. Sean's apparently quite good in it as well.
Boy,
that's what Nigel told me to say.
Well, of course he does.
Much appreciated, chaps. Thank you. And I'll see you
later.
Soon.
Bye.
Thank you all very much for watching. Really much appreciated. I'm sorry. Normally I do a lot of the comments. I did try and put as many up as I possibly could, but my apologies for not being able to do so tonight. But appreciated. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I will see you all very, very soon.